Welcome to the Adventure to Evolve podcast, your conscious playground. Here, we explore leadership strategies to lead the most incredible adventure of your lifetime, your story. I'm Shalia Stafford, your host and ex-corporate sales leader turned podcast host, keynote speaker, and entrepreneur. Using leadership strategies, I'm guiding you to lead all the awkward, uncomfortable, heart-beating, palm sweating experiences that serve your growth and make your 80-year-old self proud without the corporate jargon. In this chapter of your life, what experiences are calling you to explore every layer of who you are? If that is your truth, I triple dog dare you to dive in, guided by the wisdom of your divine essence. If you like what you hear and want to go deeper into your adventure, join our online course at goflipthescript.com. Welcome back, everyone. It's Shalia here. I am so thrilled to introduce our guest expert today, a dear friend of mine, Jon Colby, who is known to be one of MSN's top leading speakers to watch out for and follow in 2025. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with Jon's work, Jon works in the world of improv and bringing improv into leadership development in organizations to help companies learn how to bring value and collaboration amongst many other critical skills that help companies succeed. Funny thing is, when I created the original intro, I was under the impression that improv was more of a comedic avenue. Quickly did I learn that improv is so much more. Improv is a way to connect to building trust with the process of our journey as individuals who are figuring out how to be the best that we can be in this world, while also helping others feel valued along the way. How do we use improv to help us overcome limiting beliefs or the fear of failure or perfectionism that can creep up in today's fast world? I want to give a little bit of context on how Jon and I met. When I was just starting out and navigating the confusing world of building a speaking career, I went searching for answers where most of us do, the internet. Now, that's when I first came across Jon. And true to who he is, Jon didn't just share advice on the internet with me on a confusing question that I had, but he invited me to a community of speakers who meet regularly to practice and improve and keep sharpening their craft as leading speakers in the industry. And honestly, this is Jon in a nutshell. He builds community, he helps people grow, and he reminds us that none of us have it all figured out, but we can bring value and joy to the process along the way. That's Jon in a nutshell. He builds community, he helps people grow, and he reminds us that we're all trying to figure it out. And along the way, we can also bring value. I used to think that Jon's world was centered on comedy, but sitting with him, I learned that improv is much more than just entertainment. It's a way of showing up in life and work. Improv teaches us to listen deeply, to build on ideas instead of shutting them down, and to create space where people feel valued. In this conversation, you'll get to know Jon better, his story, his work, and what he values most. And you'll hear how the simple principles of improv can help us connect more fully and lead more effectively. I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. We're going to open up the episode learning more about Jon through some fire away questions. Jon Colby, thank you so much for joining us as a guest, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Thanks for having me. It's funny, we talk all the time, and now it's like in an official capacity.
I know, and this is why I know this is going to be so much fun. Jon, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what you do at work, I want to understand, what feels the most important to you in this chapter of life?
Oh man, it's such a hard question to answer. What's so important to me? Because I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. We were just talking about them before we started recording, and so being present with my family, but at the same time spreading joy and happiness. I kind of tell people now my life mission is to teach people how to make the people in their life feel more valued, because I mean, in personal life, you and I both experienced grief in the not too distant past, and so like realizing that our time isn't forever, and so we need to make sure we're valuing the people in our life that we love, but also in a business sense, people who feel valued, they stay, they work harder. Retention's better, productivity's better. So just making people in my life feel valued, and then teaching other people how to make people feel valued.
I'm curious, what's something that your daughters have helped you understand about life that you're still learning?
Oh, patience. I think I mean, I've always known I'm impatient. I want things to be done immediately. And my daughters are impatient just because that's the way they're wired at that age. They don't understand waiting for things. But then there have been times I've caught myself kind of excited for when my daughters are old enough to do blank. And my daughter, my 6-year-old is talking about wanting to drive, and she's excited about that. And so we get so focused on what's coming up and stuff like that. I'm like, be patient, like be in the present now. And so I think they teach me just to be focused and appreciative of where I am now. I heard somebody talk about this in child psychology. She said, whenever I get frustrated with my little kids, I pretend like I am 85 years old and I took a time machine and it brought me back to this moment. And now being able to see these kids and be in this moment, like just be appreciative of it and not focused up in the minutia of the everyday.
I love that grounding. That's something that I use often too.
Yeah.
Okay, complete this thought. I wish I would have paid more attention when.
Oh, I wish I would have paid more attention when people encouraged me to do stuff. I think the career I'm in, I love what I do, but I didn't start doing it until I was 41. I used to be a teacher and I love doing that, but I've dreamed of doing what I'm doing now, speaking on leadership and communication through improv for decades. And I can tell you a moment. It was 2007. I got accepted to the Second City Conservatory. So it's a comedy program up in Chicago. And I moved up there, but I got a teaching job again. And I just have always been a teacher. And I had one of my good friends to this day, he told me, he's like, you're not gonna try and do this now while you're doing that? I'm like, no, I'll do this and I'll do that. And he's like, I feel like you are, you've dipped your foot in the pool, you've got down into the pool, and now you're into the deep end, but you're holding onto the edge. And you won't know if you can really swim until you let go of the edge. And that was in 2007. And I don't feel like I let go of the edge until 2019. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure all the experiences have led me to where I am and I'm happy now. But that's 12 years that I held onto the edge.
I got so excited here with getting to learn more about your story that I jumped right into the fire away questions. Didn't even give an opportunity to tell the audience what exactly is it that you do today?
Oh, yeah. So I've been doing improv for 27 years. What I do is teach people how to use improv games to be better at everything else in life. So whether it's a keynote, a company retreat, or a sales rally or anything, I basically have the entire audience play every single improv game. So I know some people that do improv, they'll bring people up from the audience and then have them do it, and then there's a lesson from it. But I am an experiential learner myself, and so if everybody in the room is allowed to participate, not only do they get the experience, also nobody feels put on the spot because there's never an audience. I'm playing along with them. Everybody in the room is playing every game. So they're in groups of 2, 3, or 4, or even 6 for one or two of the games. So they're always with other people. So they're interacting and engaged in it. And then afterwards, we kind of pull back and say, okay, during that game, were you doing this? Because if so, you weren't being a great listener. Were you doing this? If so, you were limiting creativity. Or were you doing this? Which means you were helping to collaborate and pull other people into the experiences. And so many of the things that we're doing, it just becomes second nature to us, but we don't realize how it is either helping or hindering those around us and even ourselves to move forward at the best of our abilities.
Jon, so improv, that's such a different perspective to come in and to do leadership trainings. I think about my teams. I used to bring in people to do trainings on communication, emotional intelligence, sales, but to think of having someone come in and to use improv as an experiential way to connect to these skills is so neat. Can you tell me more? For those of us who aren't familiar with improv, what is it?
So I'll back up and say, like, the number one rule of improv is yes and. So before you even get into it, you learn that rule. And yes and is a very simple concept. It means when somebody shares an idea or a thought or just brings something to the table in a scene, yes means you agree with it instead of being the contrarian, or what people like to call the devil's advocate, right? I call those people buttholes, because you think you're adding another perspective, but what you're doing is shutting down conversations and shutting
Yeah.
down creativity before it can even
Yeah.
have a chance to grow at all. So yes is the first part, and then and means when somebody shares an idea with you, you find agreement and then share your idea back. So it's, if it's two people who are yes anding each other, I say, we're going to build a rocket ship and go to Mars. Yes, and we're going to bring some food with us. Yes, and we're going to need a crew. Yes, and so you basically work together to build that scene. It's such a relatively simple concept, but I have probably 20 friends that have those words tattooed on their body as a reminder that I need to be yes and, because we are conditioned to say no. We are conditioned to be risk averse. We are conditioned as in the business world. We're always looking for how to improve something, right? So when somebody brings you their best work, the first thing we look for is, where can we improve it? Where can we fix it, right? And it's done with good intention, but what we're doing is just wearing people down. I say this all the time in my talks, like my quiz to see if you're a yes and person. I'm your kid, and I come home with my report card, and I have 5 A's and 1 B. What's your first comment? Right? Because if you celebrate those 5 A's, you're that looking for the positive, right? If your
Yes.
first thing is, ooh, what happened with the B? Your kid got 5 A's and 1 B, which isn't even a horrible grade, but the first thing you do is point out what's not good. And so what are we doing? We're wiring people's brain to think we're never good enough. And so if we become yes and leaders, if we become yes and spouses and parents and friends, we start developing a culture where we feel celebrated again, so we feel valued. And then there's some other rules that we go into, but we teach these basic rules of just accept what people bring to the table. Then when we start playing games, if people mess up or people aren't playing it exactly right, we don't call them out. We don't belittle them or make jokes about it. We just adapt as we move forward, and that's all improv and life is, right? It's listen and then adapt, and listen and adapt, and then you do that for your entire life. And so we teach little things that you can do to be better again at listening, or better at adapting. I will admit I'm a control freak, and improv helps me to relax and let go of some of that control and say, let's go on this ride and find out where we're going to go. And obviously we can navigate a little bit, but don't get too caught up when we don't go exactly the way we plan on.
So yes means agree, and
And means add your idea back.
add your idea. Okay, I love that. That is a challenge. It reminds me of this book that I read. I don't know if you've read it before. It's called How to Talk to Your Kids So They'll Listen, and How to Listen So Your Kids Will Talk.
It's funny, I haven't read the book, but it's in my Amazon cart right now because somebody just told me about it like a
Yeah.
week ago.
Oh, it's a fantastic book. You should read it. It has a lot of correlations to what you're saying, and it's one that really makes you aware of how to invite collaboration. Is improv the same as comedy? Because I know you've done comedy. How have those two worlds merged for you, if at all?
So improv is a type of comedy. So I think when a lot of people hear the word comedy, they think of stand up, where it's just one person
Yeah.
going up on a microphone and making stuff up, right? Well, improv, as far as improv comedy, when you go to improv comedy show, it's typically multiple people. I have a 2-man show named Dudesicle, and it's just 2 dudes making up a musical. So we get a suggestion from the audience, and then the 2 of us play all the characters, and we do a 30 to 45-minute show. But I also perform with Comedy Sports. So if you're listening to this anywhere in the U.S., look up Comedy Sports. It's all one word with a Z at the end. They're in, I think, 25 cities in the U.S., where it's like a red team and a blue team, and there's 3 of each, and then a referee is the host, and they play games against each other. And the games are a lot like the things you would see on, like, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Or Wildin' Out on MTV. It's these shows where, again, you take a suggestion from the audience, and you do a scene, or you make up a song, or you play some type of game with it. So there are some, like, stand-up elements to it. There are some games where we get a suggestion and we just have to make up a joke on the spot. But there are other times when it's more like improvisational theater. So it's a blast. I tell people I get to play pretend with my friends in front of an audience, and it's kind of the coolest thing in the world for me.
It makes me think about this documentary that I was sharing in the beginning. These are all human traits that we've evolved over millions of years. And one that I hear that you're talking about is imagination.
Yeah.
The idea to think about different scenarios, how people might feel, to play on different aspects of the imagination.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because one of those components that I learned about, like laughter, did you know, fun fact, that laughter began in primates when they were rough playing? And in order to signal, I'm not actually going to fight you and hurt you, it's okay, they would pant. So it would be like,
Yeah.
that eventually became laughter and what we have today as
Wow. That's
and
cool.
what we do. Isn't it so cool?
It's cool when you think about that creativity and that ability to imagine. And what really imagining allows us to do is problem solve, right? And to create new things.
Yes.
Like without being able to imagine or dream something that doesn't exist, like we couldn't solve problems, because what you do when you're problem solving is, look, here's where we are, this is what we want to do, and then you have to kind of imagine how we get from there to there, and that's where you start, like finding new paths or creating new opportunities. It all comes from just this, and you even said the word earlier, play, right? Just if we can learn to just play more, stop taking things so seriously, all of a sudden you kind of unlock these parts of your brain. And I get pushback sometimes when I have a specific workshop I call practical creativity. And I use the word practical because those more straight-laced people are like, well, we don't need creativity in the insurance field or in, actuaries don't need this or accountants don't need this. But I'm like, you need practical creativity to get your brain just thinking creatively so you can find more streamlined ways of doing things or more creative solutions and stuff like that. So just getting people to play opens up their minds so we can see things that we might not have seen before.
I'm curious, as I think about your story, how does someone like you, who is such a phenomenal speaker and now rated by MSN's to be one of the top leading speakers to follow in 2025, have this 12-year holding on to the edge part of your story where it was hard to let go into that imagination of what's to come? We have our own evolutions, but I'm curious, what was that challenge and resistance in your story?
For me, this gets into my entire life. I think. I grew up poor. I grew up really poor.
Yeah.
My dad passed away when I was a baby, so it was like my mom trying to raise 4 kids on her own, and it was just kind of like. I loved theater in high school, and my wife kind of has a similar story where we both loved theater growing up, but like you never dreamed of theater being a career. Like that's something other people do, right? And then so I got a job as a theater teacher. My wife taught English and theater. So we got these teaching jobs, which allowed us to be in the arts. And so don't get me wrong, I love teaching theater. I ended up adding speech and video production as well. So I taught all these classes that I really loved. And I felt like teaching improv, whether it was for the stage or for business, was always what I called my side hustle. And I'm like, well, that's not something that you make a career. That's something you just kind of do for fun in your extra time, right? And so it was always just this far off dream that wasn't a reality. And I had to, we add these limitations on ourselves. I had this is what you need to do. This is what you get a job, and then you work for, what you say, 47 years, and then you retire, right? Yeah. So I always just kind of thought that was it. I'm trying to think. I guess I know a friend who owns a hair salon, but she graduated from high school and then went to beauty school and then started working and then eventually, kind of worked exactly toward that model. And I never dream that the model I had, I didn't know I didn't know a professional speaker. I didn't know somebody who did it full time. And so it wasn't even something you could do. And then my moment, like I can tell you, I got connected with somebody on Facebook about they wanted to do something and they knew that I did these things because he actually worked at a different high school. And he's like, Jon Colby does kind of improv based stuff. She was looking for somebody to do it, some realtors. And so I did it, and we had a phone call about it. And she's like, well, what would you charge? And I told her, and she's like, great, we'll take 4 sessions, 4 one-hour sessions. I'm like, oh, nice. So I did those over a 2-month period. At the end, she handed me a check and goes, you're not charging enough. You should charge more. I'm like, oh, cool. So fast forward like 6 or 8 months, and she left that company and went to work for a bigger company. And she was hiring a speaker. And that first one, by the way, was in Indianapolis, where I'm from. Go Colts. But then 6 or 8 months later, she's like, hey, I'm putting together an event for Century 21. It's their top brokers from all over the country out in Park City, Utah. So we'll fly you out, put you in a nice hotel and all that. So I raised my fee a little bit. And then, I went and spoke, and the CEO afterwards, the CEO of Century 21 International, he's like, hey, are you going to stay for the dinner tonight? That was great. I said, no, I got to get back to my job. He's like, wait, what's your job? I was like, I'm a high school theater teacher. And he's like, oh, I mean, if I don't mean to overstep here, but you should quit and do this full time. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, I've never seen somebody do kind of what you do the way you do it. I just think you could make a career, even if it was just in the realtor industry. So I went home and talked to my wife about it, and that kind of led me on that. Oh, and then in the limo back to the airport with that woman who hired me the first time, she goes, I'm going to tell you again, you raised your rates, but you're still not charging enough. And then she started talking about the kinds of money that she paid people to do the same thing I'd done in the past. And all of a sudden it became this reality of, I'm like, I could do this enough to make it a job. And so that led on basically that was in the beginning of a school year. I taught that last year, 2018 to 2019. In June of 2019, this became my full-time job, and I haven't looked back.
Wow. So if you had to break your life up into 3 chapters up until this point, what would you name each chapter?
That's a good question. So in my life, I think, my first chapter would be from birth till, we'll say 20, and I'll call that An Actor Prepares, which if you know acting, that's the name of one of the most famous books on acting. Konstantin Stanislavski, this Russian director, acting coach, wrote this book on how to become an actor. And I think my first 20 years with like an actor is preparing. I'm like, I wasn't athletic. I was always the goofball. I was class clown in high school. But as a kid, I would sit in the mirror and just make funny faces, and I would practice voices and stuff, which now as a dad, I can do like Mickey Mouse and Donald and Goofy and all that. And so my kids think I'm cool. So that's the first chapter. And then from 20 to 40, I would call those like, we'll call that rehearsal. So you have an actor prepares, so I'm like getting ready, and then you go into rehearsals for the show. And in those rehearsals, I started doing this stuff, and I also at 20 is when I found improv, and so I started doing shows there and stuff like that. But at 40, I had a kid. And at 40, again, 2018 is when he told me you should do this full time. So at 40 is where everything kind of started happening. And then so now it's like showtime. This 40 to now I'm 47 is showtime. And so now I'm a parent. I'm a husband. I got married in my late 30s. So that kind of overlaps a little bit. But I'm speaking and traveling, and I have an online course that I'm wrapping up, and it's going to be available. So all these things now, it's just like now is the time in my business and in my career where we're live.
Oh, the show is on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So, Jon, you and I both grew up in poverty. And we were raised by strong women who did the best that they could to create humans who go out there and create magic in the world. And you sure are doing that. You are a connector wherever you go. I'm curious if you've always been as confident on stage. What was it like when you went to your first improv class, when you stepped on a stage? What was that experience like, and what did you learn from it?
So I tell people, like my 6-year-old has never been in a performance. She's been in some dance shows, but she's never been in a theatrical performance or anything. But she's always on stage, right? So at our church every week, all the kids go up for the message at the beginning, and then they all go out. Well, people come up to me just because while the person leading the little morning lesson before they go out, as she talks, my daughter Georgia will just look right out into the crowd at me and be like, and make all these faces, and people are like, she's so funny and she's not even trying, like she's just a goofball, and I'm like, that's my kid. So I feel like I was the same way. I'm just like goofy and stuff like that. And so my first actual performance, I think I was 6 or 7, and it was in a church play that my mom wrote and directed. So I did those things. I was in my first real play in middle school. In high school, I was in shows. In college, I was in shows. But I was in a rehearsal for a show in college, and something went wrong in the rehearsal, and everybody was probably at least 10 years older than me. I think it was 19. But I didn't stop. I just kept like moving forward, like the scene, improving basically. And the director came up to me afterwards. He's like, "You should do improv." And I didn't even know really what it was yet. And so he told me about comedy sports, and so I went a couple weeks later, and just like, again, it was like divine intervention. They're like, "Hey, and just so you know, we're actually having auditions in 2 weeks." And I was like, "Oh." So it just like the timing of it lined up. So I went to audition. My very first audition, I'm like, this, I don't even care if I get in. That was so fun. And then I ended up getting in. And so for me, like, I've always been confident on stage because I don't think of it as everyone is looking at me and everybody is judging me. I think of it as like everybody wants to have a good time, and I want to help them have a good time. So I'm gonna, whether it's me acting or directing or performing in an improv show, I'm simply giving them something to enjoy. So it's not about me; it's about the art we're creating together in that moment.
How beautiful. And it shows because you are constantly refining your skill, going back to these improv sessions and being on stage in theater and really exploring those creative aspects of who you are, embodying that so you can share that with others. And they say that our confidence is built through competence. The more that we practice to put ourselves out there, the more that grows. Yeah. And you are certainly a master in that area of constantly practicing. So going back to this first chapter of your life, the one that we call The Actor Prepares. Tell me what that era of life taught you the most, especially now that you have children. And at that time, you were still a child yourself, being raised by a woman that you so loved, your mother, who was a strong anchor in your life. What is something that chapter of your life taught you that you wish to instill now in chapter 3 in Showtime?
That's an easy one for me. It's empathy. I think, we talk about our moms a lot, and I think my mom, in spite of losing her husband when she was in her late 20s, and then, I've watched as growing up as she lost her dad, and then eventually her mom, and her best friend, and like a lot of people in her life passed away, but she was always just focused on loving people and living life and enjoying things, and she was a servant leader. Like as a mom, she would serve other people, and that comes from my grandma. My grandma was the same way, and so my like formative years just taught me like I might not be the best at anything, but I can love on people, and so I've always tried to be, not always succeeding, but I've always tried to be somebody who makes other people feel loved and appreciated and included. And that's something I hope that I can do for my kids too, and teach them, that what we have is a blessing, and we can use it to bless others. And so whether it's our time, our treasure, our talent, find ways to give back so everybody can be as happy as humanly possible.
I know that with improv, another aspect that you get to share with people is teaching them how to think quick on their feet. With a lot of different exercises that you do. What is something that you're still learning to navigate when life throws you the unexpected that requires you to think quick on your feet?
So this is my humble moment. I have learned over the last couple of years to ask for help. I think seeing my mom be so resourceful and kind of do it all herself, I've always kind of been a do-it-all-myself person. Even when I was a high school director, I would direct shows, but I think I would try and do as much of it as myself as possible, just because I'm like, I told you, I'm a control freak, so I want things to go a certain way, and so I need to do them myself. And I've gotten to a point in my life that I don't have to be good at everything, and I don't want to be good at everything. I want to trust people who are more knowledgeable and experienced in certain areas to do their work and help me, and pay people to do those things. And so over the last few years, I've hired a graphic artist, a graphic animator, a copywriter, a web designer, consultants to help with certain things. I've even found there's an app called Poplin. It's basically like Uber for your laundry, where you type it in and somebody will come pick up your laundry off your front porch and bring it back the next day done, right? So finding all these ways to hand things off and trust people to do them, but again, pay them. I think that's something I want to make sure I overstate. People know what I do for a living, and people often ask, like, hey, we're doing a show to try and raise money for this, or we're we thought it'd be fun to put together this type of thing. Can you get some of your friends together and do an improv show? And earlier growing up, I was like, yeah, sure. And so I'd ask my friends, hey, will you do this? And then we'd all go perform for free. And if it was for a nonprofit or for a good cause, sure. But we would do it sometimes where they're making money off this. And I'm like, wait, if I want to do that, that's fine. But I'm asking my friends to do this. So it's the empathy piece. Like, am I valuing my friends when I'm kind of calling in these favors for somebody else? So I now go back to the person and say, we'll charge this much per person, so they make some money off of it. Or if it's something I really believe in, I'll even pay my friends to do it so I can donate it to them, as a goodwill gesture. But just being aware that people are good at things, and I want to value them in the right ways.
What is an experience that you're currently seeking to challenge your growth?
I'm doing this online course, and it's funny that you're asking me this today, because I was just telling somebody that I feel so stuck. So I've been working. I've had a dream to write a book for a few years. A lot of times when I speak, people go, "Do you have a book?" And I'm like, I'm working on it. So I wrote an outline for the whole thing. I started writing the first few chapters, and I was realizing it didn't work because I wanted people to be able to see these games that I play. And so I had explanations of them, but they don't necessarily make sense unless you see it. So I'm like, maybe I could do some type of video thing. And then about a year and a half ago, I met a woman who does this online platform thing for her company, and she kind of gave me some guidance, and so I started putting it together. And so in my spare time, between everything else, I'd been working on it, and I finally got it up and launched in beta mode, just over a month ago. I think it was at the beginning of May that it was live. And I asked for feedback from some people, and I knew there were a couple things I wanted to tweak. And now I've got all these things that I want to fix. And my challenge is, what advice do I take? What advice do I not take? And then the thing that my friend called me out on, he's like, at some point, you just need to launch it and then continue to fix it as it goes on. And that's where I don't like to say I'm a perfectionist. I think in a lot of ways I know I'm a hot mess and I just roll on. But my challenge is now balancing that quality versus perfectionism now. You're right. I want good quality, but I can't expect perfect. And so that's literally what I'm going to be working on this afternoon.
Yeah, and the idea of improv too, right, is there's no mistakes.
Right. Exactly.
Build
Good
on
listening.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an excellent opportunity to dive into that one and see how it unfolds, because maybe it unfolds a new connection point for you.
Yeah. Good point. That's a very good point.
When you think about your 109-year-old self, if they had access to a time machine and they jump into that time machine and they arrive to this very moment in time, they climb out, they sit next to you, and they give you advice, what would they say to you?
Breathe. Just breathe. Right? You know what I mean? Just breathe. Like, everything that I'm focused on, like I've had, right before this, I got a couple emails and a text message of all these things I need to do. And I'm like, nothing is impending. And if I don't get everything done today, it doesn't matter. Again, spend time with the family. I had a moment. we have a front porch that overlooks the street, and then there's like a park to our left. And my wife loves to just sit out there and read and stuff like that. And last week, right before I left for a trip, I walked out on the front porch and I just stopped, and I could hear like birds chirping, and I saw like a squirrel running, and I just like paused, and I'm like, I need to do that more. Just take a moment and like breathe and just look around me and stop trying to look forward.
Yes. That's something we all can practice a little bit more.
Yeah.
I know that comes in handy for myself as well, too.
Yeah. The power of a deep breath, right?
So you lost your mom last year, and it's been, 2023, right?
Yeah. Yeah, November.
And how has grief changed how you connect with people and how you show up and work today?
Two ways, and I think very opposite. One, I mentioned earlier, just like being more present with the people I'm with, loving on people, celebrating moments. I took my two nephews. The Pacers are in, I don't know when this is going to come out, but the Pacers are currently in the finals, and they're going to the last game. But I took my two nephews to a game, and it was kind of expensive, but I'm like, this will be a moment that we'll remember forever, right? So like celebrate those moments and stuff like that. And then on the opposite end, if I'm going to be spending this time with people I love and stuff like that, I'm also telling people no a little bit more. Things I don't want to do. I'm not required to do things. And I tell people this all the time. I coach some people, and I'm like, you're not expected to do these things. You hold yourself to this, but nobody else. Like if you say no to going to this event, or I mean, I can tell you right now, I have an event coming up in a couple weeks, and the night before there's a reception and stuff like that. And so a lot of times I'll go to that reception the night before and mingle with people, and I'm like, no, it's coming from another gig. I don't need to wear myself out to get there in time to dress up and go to a gig or to a thing for 1 hour, or whatever. Just like, no, I will spend my time and energy more where I want, because I don't know how much time and energy I have left.
It makes you think about your legacy more too, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, what matters most, right?
Okay, Jon. So now to shift gears here, because the way that you bring improv and your theatrical experience into the corporate world is really fascinating. And I'm curious, if I was a fly on a wall, thinking about how you use improv in these spaces. You're doing it in spaces where there's executive teams, leadership retreats, Fortune 500 companies. What's actually happening in the room when people begin to loosen up and let their creativity, their imagination flow, and allow there to be no mistakes?
Right. Yeah. When we get there, it's those aha moments that you hear about. And what's funny is I'll often mention this in my talks when I'm kind of wrapping up. I like to tell people I'm not saying anything new. If you're on the executive level, like you've been through leadership training, you've been through communication, so you know listening is important. You know stuff about body language. You know about making people feel included and not just demanding people. You know, we want to lead people, not manage them. So we've heard all these things, but we'll play these simple little games and then say, were you doing this? So let's play one. Let's play one right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation, and we'll just talk about how our day went this morning before we got on the call. I'll go first.
Okay.
And when I get done speaking, you have to take the last letter of my last word in my sentence to be the first letter in your response. Okay? And so if I were to say, like, how are you today? The last letter was Y, right? So you could say, yesterday I stayed up too late, so I'm a little tired. Tired ends with a D, so I could reply, don't stay up so late next time, right? So we're trying to use that last letter. Okay, so here we go. So what did you do this morning?
Go for a run.
Nice. How far did you go?
Opposite to the end of the subdivision.
Dude, that's impressive. Do you do that every day?
Yesterday I went for a run, but I wasn't able to make it to the end of the subdivision.
Now I appreciate your honesty. Okay, so we can stop there. So you get the idea of the game. But what I want to point out in that game, it just felt like a silly little conversation, right?
It did.
But what that game is really forcing you to do is listen till the end and then think before you reply. So if a person is playing that game and they're bad at interrupting, if there's somebody who constantly catches their brain thinking ahead while the other person's talking, they're planning what they're going to say instead of listening, or if people say stuff and then they go, oh, I shouldn't have said it like that, and you catch yourself kind of saying things too quickly, you can actually play this game in real life with other people and don't tell them you're playing, and it solves all those things I just talked about. I can't interrupt you because I don't have my letter yet. While you're talking, I can't daydream or think ahead. And once I have my letter, I think before I speak back, so it keeps me from saying something that I shouldn't have said, or in a way I shouldn't have said it. So it's a simple little game. Now I'll give them 90 seconds, so I'll give them a little more time to play it. But then I show how you can use that in the real world, and it's an easy. I mean, I had a woman tell me that she uses the game at home with her 16-year-old son, and she goes, I'm having better conversations than I've had with him in years because I'm not judging him. I'm not trying to tell him how to be. I'm forcing myself to listen and then be thoughtful in my responses. I'm like, yeah, I use it too. So it's kind of a cool little trick.
And I love how it takes the seriousness out of the conversation too.
Right? Yeah.
And brings that lightheartedness into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we miss that sometimes.
Exactly.
Oh, how fun. And so, Jon, as we look at your 3 chapters and we begin to wrap up in our conversation, I'm curious to hear what's up ahead for chapter 4.
I don't know. I think as an improviser, my goal is to focus as much on now as
Chapter
possible.
3.
My business, like you can't see it, but over here I have all sorts of like strategic planning stuff and goals, whether it's monetary goals or influence goals and all these things. But what I've been struck by recently is that I'm no longer focused on growing my business. And I've told that to a couple different people in our space, and they're like, well, that's not what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, I don't want to grow it more. If I grow it more than it's at now, it's either going to cost me more of my own time. I'm going to hand off some of the stuff to other people. Like I've told you, I'm handing off parts of it, but I'm going to hand off the parts that I don't want to hand off, because my whole thing is I customize every talk and I build a relationship with every client. And so those aren't things I can hand off. Those are things I want to do. I don't need to raise my fees. I don't need to have more business. I just want to kind of maintain where I'm at so that I can allow the bulk of my time to focus on what matters most: my family, my connections with my friends, and then I build all these friends outside of my personal life through my business life. And so I joke around that I don't even need more friends at this point. I'm just happy to be around the people I have in my life.
Yeah, and you get to stay in alignment with your values. And when you're truly there in that alignment, you do the best of your work.
Yeah.
As you do.
Thank you.
Okay, Jon. So as we begin to wrap up the show, can you tell people how they can get in contact with you and more about your offerings?
Sure. Yeah. It's just joncolby.com, Jon, Colby like the cheese.com. And my offerings are for the most part me talking. I mean, it's if you have like I mentioned earlier, it's everything from a keynote to a company retreat workshop. I do a lot of leadership retreats and sales rallies. I speak on everything from, like we said earlier, communication leadership. I talk on positive psychology, emotional intelligence, creativity. My most popular new keynote is called Your Meetings Suck. And it talks about how most meetings are boring and inefficient and how you can run more efficient meetings. So that one's fun and funny. And at the end, you actually have the format to run meetings in a more effective way moving forward. And then my online course should be up and live sometime in August.
What's the name of the course?
It's the Colby Leadership Institute. It's put on the Mighty Networks network, and I'm currently working with a company to develop a landing page and name for it. So hopefully by next month, or a month and a half, when you look up Google Colby Leadership Institute, it should be the thing that pops up.
What? And who is this going to be for?
Leaders on every level. I originally had talked about doing it for a certain level of leadership and up, and then I have kind of showed it to a VP, and he's like, I want this for my branch managers. I want this for the assistant managers. I want this. So I've tweaked some of the content. So there are different modules. So whether you want to focus on emotional intelligence or running better meetings and all this different stuff, you can go through and you watch a video, you read some stuff, you take a quiz, and then you see some games that you can play. There's even videos of me explaining the games. You can literally play my video, and then your team can play the game.
Oh, that is awesome.
I'm excited. I'm very excited.
I don't know if we jokingly said this or we're actually going to do this, but I'm going to ask you the question. The big question. Do you know, or what would your answer be to what is the meaning of life?
I've already mentioned it, and I literally just said this in a talk last week. The meaning of life is to make other people feel valued. Like that's why we're here. And because when people don't feel valued, they quit their job, they quit marriages, they quit friendships, they quit churches, they quit sports. You quit going to things if you don't feel like you matter. But when you feel like you matter, you stay, you work hard, and you build amazing things.
So in the last chapter of Jon's book of life, and you have to leave some words of wisdom on your last page, what would that be? Based on the life you've lived, the people you love, the connections you've made, the places you've been, what you've experienced.
I don't know who said it, but be kinder than necessary. It's just we're in a real weird time globally right now with all sorts of things going on, and there's a whole lot of ugly stuff. But Mr. Rogers says, look for the helpers, right? And so if we focus on being kinder than necessary, we can kind of counteract all the ugly out there.
What a beautiful way to end it. Thank you so much, Jon. I appreciate you for being here with us. To our listeners, the ball is in your court. I challenge you to take action, dive deeper into the questions and the experiences that call you into alignment with your 80-year-old self. You are listening to The Adventure to Evolve. We'll see you on our next episode.
If you found even the smallest nugget of wisdom in this episode, share it with a friend and your friend will thank you. Let's continue the conversation with like-minded leaders and join us on Facebook at Go Flip the Script. Until next time, I challenge you to incorporate what you learned today to evolve your leadership impact.